We are live, so we'll wait for everyone to kind of pile in there. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good
Welcome,
evening,
welcome.
depending on where you're coming from. We're going to give everyone a few minutes to pile in here, and then we will get started. We'll get stuck into some SmartForms zero touch fun stuff.
Awesome.
It's going up quick.
Yeah, it is. Looks like we got a few people joining.
Yeah, awesome. Welcome, everyone who's kind of piling in here. We'll give just an extra, like I would say, a minute, 2 minutes, just
Yeah, I
let
think we
everyone get in.
give people a couple of minutes, and then we can get started.
Fantastic. Awesome. I'm waiting for the numbers to taper off, but it just keeps going up.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
Welcome, everyone who's jumped in.
Welcome, everyone.
Still good, still climbing.
Hey, someone's found the react
Someone
button
found the
already.
emote button. We like that. If you want to mash that button throughout, please do feel free. If you can mash it so much that it distracts me in the middle of a sentence, I'll give you a free Pia t-shirt. If you can if I find out who it was. There it is. Oh, someone's mashing that button. No. No. All right. Looks like we're starting to taper off. We're starting to round out on the numbers there. What did you say? Should we jump in? Are we ready?
Yeah, let's
Should we
jump in.
should we
Let's
kick
do
it
it.
off?
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. All right, let's get started then. So, hey everyone, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're coming from. Welcome to today's webinar. Of course, going to be talking about SmartForms Zero Touch, brought to you by Pia. My name is Tom. I'm one of the solution engineers here at Pia. I've been here about 2 years. Some of you may recognize you, some of you may not. And joining me again for the second time now on one of these webinars is Aron Hardy-Bardsley, Pia's creator and CTO. He's going to help us go through the demo, take a look at a few things, and understand exactly why SmartForms Zero Touch is here, and its strengths, and what's going to do for you guys as the MSP community at the end of the day. So, Aron, welcome back. Are you
Thanks, Tom.
pumped? Are you
I am.
jazzed?
I'm excited.
Awesome.
So I'm looking forward to
For
showing
those of
people
you
some
who
stuff.
don't know, awesome. For those of you who don't know, by the way, Aron is based in Australia. So it is 3 a.m. for you right now, Aron, I think.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
if he nods off midway or slurs his words, it's fine. We'll give him a pass on this one.
Energy
But if you
drinks, it's
guys
fine. So
yeah, just pound a Red Bull, you'll be fine. If you guys feel for Aaron, chuck a couple of hearts in the chat for us there as well. And we'll kind of jump in now. Just a quick little bit of housekeeping for you guys before we go. Of course, as you probably heard, this session is being recorded. So if you do need to jump out, or if you can't make it, or if you are watching this as the recording in the future, you have of course received the email that we're going to send out afterwards with a link to this recording. But if you are watching here, you do need to jump off. Don't worry, everything will be catching. You will have the ability to kind of catch up there as well. And I do implore you guys, make sure you ask questions. Use the chat as we go through as well. Is there anything you want to know a little bit more about Pia SmartForms specifically, or generally about the Pia products? Please do throw some questions into the chat. You have the opportunity to ask both me and Aron, as well as a guest speaker, one of our MSPs, who's going to be joining us towards the end of the call as well. Awesome. All right. So let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about Pia for those of you who aren't familiar with us as a platform, as a product. We were born out of an MSP. So we're actually born out of one of the largest MSPs in Australia, which was VITG. And we were built to solve a problem, solving the problem of linear growth. You guys are probably fairly familiar with the scenario at this point. As you grow, you take on clients, you take on endpoints, you have to kind of scale up the service desk and a few other places as well to grow with that linear thing. You kind of usually sit in a ratio of one engineer to 150 to 200, 250 endpoints or so. Now, VITG, they saw this and they wanted to grow away from it. They wanted the service desk to become more efficient and increase that profitability without having to throw more and more engineers every time they brought on a client. Now, they had Aron here at the time, and they tasked him with how to solve this issue. What do we do? We looked a bit around. Could we find anything? There wasn't really anything out there that was going to help solve this issue. So they gave the task to Aron, and Pia is essentially what came out of that. Am I correct, Aron? I think I pretty much hit all the points there, all the
yeah,
details. Anything you want to
yeah,
add
yeah.
there? Pretty much correct.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's been good journey. I mean, that was 6 years ago that I joined VITG, and at that time I was employee number 8 at that organization, and today it's going strong. Happy to say. Obviously, we spun out a pair of probably 4 years ago now, so it's been a little while outside of that. But yeah, they've gone from 8 employees when I joined to 300 staff, and I think they're at a 1 to 4 or 500 endpoint ratio at this point. So definitely reaping the benefits of automation in that business. And obviously today we automate for all MSPs, and that's what drives us today is bringing that success to everyone in the industry. So.
Absolutely. Well said. So let's jump in. Let's talk about what we're going to be doing today. Let's see how they grew that efficiency, how they grew that kind of ratio that we're talking about here. So what we're going to be looking at today is, of course, going to be the smart forms in general. We're going to be talking about what kind of problems the smart forms solve and how it does that. And of course, how it's unique. How is it different to some of the other products out there? Of course, you guys will probably know there are quite a few things out there where you can have a form portal. You can have the engineers get the data from the clients via a submitted process or something like that. But we'll talk about exactly what makes smart forms and the Pia emphasis on it specifically unique. So we'll take a look at that. And we'll also talk about those features that address problems specific to you guys as an MSP. So Pia, coming from an MSP, that's what we've been built to solve specifically. It's the problems that you guys are going to be facing kind of day to day on the kind of service desk. So we'll see and talk through all of those. And then at the end, we will, of course, talk about some of the updates, some of the things that the future might hold for SmartForms, a couple of sneak peeks about what might be coming down the line as well. And then, of course, we'll have our partner spotlight. We'll be bringing on someone who has been using SmartForms for a while now, and we'll have some Q&A to make sure we answer all of your questions as well. So let's talk a little bit about the case for SmartForms. Why SmartForms? What is it doing? Why are we here? Why is it so important that this tool is available? And what sort of kind of problems does it solve for you guys? So first and foremost, as you guys kind of know with Pia, we want to do everything automated. We want to automate as much as we can, take as much of that time away from the engineers so that they can work on something a little bit more worth their kind of expertise, a little bit more worth their time. And the first with this is end-to-end automation of the requests. So not just ingesting the form, not just having the clients fill out yet another form, like they've been through similar process. We just need the details from you. We want to go further than that. Aron, talk to us a little bit about why this is important and why we're doing the end-to-end automation of these types of requests.
Yeah, for sure. So with Pia, everything is automation first, right? So as an automation platform, our primary goal and focus is to drive efficiencies in your service desk. And so everything we do is hanging off that principle. And that includes SmartForms, right? And when we talk about the end-to-end automation of a request, and we're talking about effectively the life cycle of a ticket coming through from when that ticket is captured and the information is sent in from the client through to the triaging of that ticket and dispatching of it, and then through to the actioning of that request. So we're really talking about all the different aspects of the delivery of that ticket within your MSP and within your service desk. And we see, the capturing point of capture as a key piece to the automation of requests within that process. So it's very important as an automation platform that we are holistically looking at and solving these challenges across the end-to-end life cycle of these requests. And SmartForms is a key component of that. And by having, SmartForms, AI triage, and the automations within the chatbot and the ticket itself, really all of those things combined of what, adding all those things together is what truly enables like that power of automation on your service desk. So talking about SmartForms today is one piece of that puzzle, and but it is in the context of that larger efficiency gain from automation on your service desk.
Absolutely. Well said. And I think it's important to know as well, there's not just the singular issue. It's not just the fact that we want to automate this process to break some time away from the engineers. But we're going to be addressing several different problems that typically come from these service desk requests as well, such as getting that information on the right time around, making sure all of the relevant fields on the form, everything you need to complete that request is part of that eliminating that potential back and forth. I'm sure you've all seen it before, where a ticket will come through in from a client, and you'll be like, well, this is fantastic. This is 99% of what I need, but I now need to send them an email. They might not get back for a couple of hours, maybe a day or two. That's just driving up your average resolution time. So Aaron, talk to us a little bit about how does Pia solve these specific areas?
Yeah, for sure. And this is, I'm sure every MSP, if you're not using a form solution at the moment, someone logs an onboarding request and says, hey, Sarah starts on Monday. Can you set them up? If you don't have templates provided to them, they're just going to send through an email, and they're not going to provide you necessarily all the information you need to capture the first time around. So you're going to have issues, going back and forth, really getting the right information. But even if you do provide a template, or you're providing even a digital form to them, and let's say you have like who's their manager, right? Like a manager box, right? Something simple like that. If they're just saying, if they submit that form through and say Sarah is the manager, right? There might be 5 Sarahs in that company. Which Sarah do they mean, right? So how do we make sure that the information is captured the right way the first time around? So we really want to make sure that that first initial capturing of the information, logging of the request, has everything on it that you need, and that we need to actually completely automate that request, because everything with Pia is about that automation, right? So that's what we drive home, is that the forms are actually servicing the automation that's going to be running on that request. And obviously with zero touch automation, potentially completely automating that request without any involvement from your team at all.
Absolutely. And that pretty much brings us on to our next point as well, is being able to complete those requests, even if the engineering desk isn't around at the time. I'm sure you guys do get a lot of cases, those who run your service desk during business hours, kind of the Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, 9 to 6. You're going to get those requests that come in maybe in the evenings, over the weekend, especially prevalent if they are from some of your clients whose data security is a little bit more sensitive. If they need to terminate a user, they need to make sure that account is closed, that access is revoked immediately. So leaning on zero touch a little bit here, Aaron, are we solving that issue? Are we kind of solving that problem here as part of what we're going to see today?
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of interesting actually. The core focus of SmartForms is that you as the MSP get the benefit of the efficiency of automation on your service desk. But one of the side effects of having this automation portal that people fill out this form in is that you also have now got a self-service capability, right? So where you have these user onboarding, grant mailbox access, offboarding, password reset type requests, you can actually have your clients, if you present this to your clients as a self-service capability, you can have them filling out these forms and self-servicing their requests in odd hours when you're not available to do that request, right? You just need to configure zero-touch automation and make sure those requests will complete with zero touch. But by all means, you can wrap this as a value add to your clients as a self-service functionality. It's extremely compelling for clients. The MSPs who do this with their clients, and the feedback we get is that they love it.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, we've spoken a lot about how we're solving the issues and how fantastic it is, but of course you guys want to see it. You don't want to just listen to me and Aaron waffle about this. So let's jump into the demo itself. Let's actually take a look at how SmartForms looks for the clients. We'll fill it out as if we were the end user, and then we'll take a look at the ticket and the settings that are available as well to you guys as the service desk engineers, as the MSP, to make sure you get the maximum out of it. So let's jump in and take a look. So I have my portal up here for my pretend MSP called, my pretend client called TomTech. Very creative, I know. And this is essentially what they're going to see. Now, everything you see here is configurable. So the coloring, the logo, the wording, everything like this, I can change. We'll take a look at the branding options there in a little bit, but you can essentially configure this to be very familiar, very similar kind of expectation and landing area for the client. So they see that, they see your logo, they see your colors, they feel the warm and fuzzies, they feel safe, they're going to obviously do what they need to do. And it's worth noting as well that this portal is authenticated with single sign-on. So no one's getting in here, no one's getting access to this form or this information without explicit permissions and connections from the Pia tenant and from you guys as the admins as well. That's important to know. Now, we have quite a few forms in here already. Should we jump straight into the deep end? Should we just go straight for a staff onboarding?
Yeah.
I think it's the most interesting one. All right,
Yeah, let's have a look at
let's
that
do
one.
it. So I'm going to pop this in here. And while I load this form up, talk to us a little bit about what's going on in the background here. What are we going to see when this form is ready for us to run?
Yeah, so what's happening here is that Pia is actually creating a ticket in your PSA at this point, and we're actually starting an automation. So with Pia, pretty much everything around SmartForms and the chatbot automations, everything's an automation in Pia, right? So whenever we're running a request through Pia, it's going to go off, it's going to gather some information, and it's going to load that into the form. And this is where the real power comes into some of that dynamic data loading functionality, which we'll have a look at in a second. So Tom's just going to start filling out this request here.
We'll go for a Jimmy Pia, Mr. Pia.
Yes. And as he comes down, you've got these job title, manager, department, and company options. And so as he starts typing in the job title, you can see a list of options there. That's actually going to be coming directly from the Active Directory or Office 365 of the client that's actually authenticated to SmartForms. This information, same thing with the manager drop down there, this information is loaded live. So that loading screen that you saw, we loaded that information into the form. This is something that is unique to Pia and to SmartForms. If you're using other forms technologies and you've got that experience, you will know that you may need to manually update that information and keep it up to date per client, or use APIs to kind of try and get that information in there yourself. So immediately we have eliminated the need to keep that information up to date, creating some efficiency straight off the bat.
Absolutely. And as we continue down, I can see I've actually got this option for system access level as well. And I've got a few things in here, some of which is fairly obvious to me as an MSP. I've seen this before. I want to copy an existing employee. Of course, I have the list there. But Aaron, what's this other one? What are access levels? What am I seeing in this one here?
Yeah, so you can think of access levels as user templates. And so you're actually able to, with Pia, and if you're already using Pia, you may have already configured this for your user onboarding automation in the chatbot. But you can create these templates where you can say, if you click on sales and you say, I want to create a user under sales, that will actually automatically put them into certain groups and a certain OU that you have pre-configured in the background. So this is a great way of, your clients are not going to know exactly which groups that you need to put them into, and they might not even know what an OU is. Right. So this is a great way of configuring some presets for them, and then letting them pick from a list that makes sense to them.
Fantastic. So I'm going to go for sales. I also have the ability here to send an SMS directly to that user via a mobile phone if I want them to have the details, essentially eliminating the password from passing through anyone else. I can get directly to them. And looks like we have a non-standard request down here as well. So anything, I suppose, that's outside of the normal request, any additional processes that are outside the norm, I can go ahead and throw that in here as well. And all this information, of course, gets passed to the engineer. Now, just a quick question for you, Aaron, as I get down to the bottom here. Of course, this is a pretty fantastic form. I'm a little biased, but I love it. There are a few fields missing for me as an MSP, though, that I would need to know in terms to create a user onboarding request. Now, we obviously said earlier that we one of these problems we're trying to solve is not having to go back for information. So what happens here? Can I add fields? Can I customize this? What's the deal?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's the answer is yes. You can absolutely add fields to the forms. There's a couple of ways we give people to do this. We have what's called extension automations, where, with Pia's pre-built automations, you can actually add extensions to those automations. And that includes SmartForms. So with SmartForms, you can create an extension with your own custom fields, and you can also create an extension to process that information and perform your own actions as well. So while Pia's automation for the user onboarding does all the bits and pieces that it's pre-built to do, then that might be 80% of what it needs to do for your particular client, you can create an extension that does that extra 20% for your client. You don't need to worry about necessarily what Pia is doing. It'll do its thing. It'll create the user. It'll do the exchange licensing. It'll do all the bits and pieces that it's got pre-built. But then you can create your extension to do just your bit that you want to do as well. And if that's not enough, and you really want to create and customize the whole thing yourself, you can go that extra step further. and you can create the entire automation yourself. In fact, this automation, this SmartForm, and all automations in Pia's platform are built using the exact same functionality and technology that you have available to you as an MSP in the platform. So anything that we show you automation-wise that you see, you could build the exact same thing, or obviously, why would you build the exact same thing? We've built it for you, but you can customize and build your own version of those things for sure.
Absolutely fantastic. And if I may, I'm just going to throw in one example for you guys just to show you the kind of scope that these extensions can do. I'm actually going to go ahead and submit this form here, and we'll jump and take a look into it in a moment. But I want to take you through an example that I helped another MSP to build. They put a lot of work and a lot of thought into it, and it really has increased their efficiency. They built an extension onto the form itself. So when the user sees it, they see all the normal details we just saw. And then they also see the start date, they see the hardware that's going to be required by the user, the laptop, the desktop, if it's a desktop, how many monitors, are they traveling, do they need a phone, all this kind of stuff that's going to be part of their request. They have that all as the form, and that was kind of iteration one. And then we help to build out from that and say, right, well, now that we have this information, what does the engineer typically do with that? Well, the user gets created by Pia, fantastic. But then the engineer takes this information and they have to go to the sales board. They have to create a new ticket, pull this information in so that hardware could be ordered and shipped to the client. That's silly. Let's do that in Pia. So we help build the automation that essentially says, hey, we're going to take that information. We're going to raise that ticket. We're going to contact the sales team. We're going to put all of that into the service desk for you. The engineer doesn't need to touch it at all. The entire process is now automated, start to finish. So it's just a bit of an idea of the scope of what Pia can do if you're interested. And we can obviously help you along that journey as well.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. All right. So our form has been submitted. This is the screen that the client gets. Of course, we can see the details about our ticket. We've got our ticket number here. We can also see that I can go straight back and submit another one if I want to as well. So I'm just going to copy this to clipboard just in case. And of course, this takes me back here. But that is the end for the client. That's all they need to do is fill that form, hit that button. Pia has everything it needs now, as do your engineers. Let's go ahead and take a look at the ticket that was created in my service desk for me and see how that's looking. So I'm just going to pop over here.
Let's have a look at what's happening in the back end.
Let's jump in. So we've got a new user request for Jimmy Pia here. A few things to note, by the way. You will notice that the company and contact has been automatically assumed based on the information of who was logged into the portal at the time. That was me. So my details have been put in here. We also have the type, subtype, and item that have been entered automatically. That is all configured in settings. We'll see in a moment. We can see the status and the board have also been part of that as well. But that's all very interesting stuff, but there's a lot going over here on the right-hand side in the Pia pod as well. Now, Aaron, what exactly is going on here? What exactly is Pia doing while my engineer is jumping onto the ticket here?
Yeah, so when we submitted that SmartForm request, Pia actually started processing the request. And I think if we scroll up a little bit, we might see some verification information. There we are. So Pia's actually, so not only have we captured the right information because we've got the right form with the right options in the fields, we've got, live data being populated into the form as options. So, you can't select the wrong Sarah as the manager. You have to pick the right one. But effectively, after that point as well, we also verify all of that information. So we do some basic checks like, does this user already exist? Is it a duplicate? Is there a license available for that user? Is the password complexity match the requirements of the environment for that client? So we do some checks in there and we verify all this information. And in the case where the information is not valid or there's no license available, for example, or whatever, we can actually resolve that as an engineer in the chatbot. Pia will actually pause the request and ask you to resolve the issue. Now, in the case where, and we can change that configuration, we can say, well, if there's no license available, create the user anyway, right? So we've got a few options there. Yeah. But in this case here, if we've got zero touch enabled, which we do, Pia's actually just gone through and completely created the user for us. We haven't had to do anything. You can see that that's just completed. And that's the power of zero touch automation.
Absolutely. Fantastic stuff. And for those eagle-eyed among you, by the way, yes, we did fail one of our validation steps up here. This is actually something I configured and tested earlier. So my demo environment doesn't have any paid licenses because I'm poor. So I don't have any kind of email-enabled licenses that I can use here. So I did enable something in Pia to say, hey, if that can't have a license, if it's not mail-enabled, that's okay, pass through. And that just shows the kind of configurability that you can have. If that's something that's going to be by the sort of standard process for the client, I don't have to sit there and say every single time, say, hey, that's okay, you can go. I can configure that ahead of time. Pia's going to pass that one by for me. It's going to let me know, but it's still going to continue with the creation of the user, which we can see down here.
And just as an update as well, so for anyone who's familiar with our chatbot automations, the version of the automation where you run it yourself as an engineer, that automation supports the CSP procurement of licenses. We're announcing today as well that the CSP procurement of licenses for the SmartForm automation, so this one that just ran here, will be available in the next upcoming automation release. So what that means is that not only does Pia check the license, but it will also go out and purchase the license for the supported CSPs that we have today. So very powerful.
Absolutely fantastic. So even removing that step from the engineer saying, oh, I've stopped now because I haven't got a license. I need to go to Pax8 onto Microsoft. I need to procure that, then come back and then retry things with Pia, all in stride. That's pretty incredible. That's
awesome. we'll just do it.
We'll just do it. Why not? We've got the power. Why not just do it, right? And I did a quick refresh there on the screen as well, guys. I just wanted to show you, now that the request has been complete, our ticket has also been moved into a completed status as well. So that entire cycle, that entire life cycle ticket has been completed. It was open, the request completed, the ticket closed. And if I go into this time portion here in ConnectWise as well, I've even added 45 minutes of my standard onboarding billable time for the client as well. And for those of you wondering, we are using ConnectWise as our development environment here, but the exact same functionality is available in Autotask and Halo as well. So we're not missing out anything by not being in ConnectWise. Now, should we take a look at some of the settings, Aaron, and see what some of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes? How easy is it to configure SmartForms? Am I going to be in there for hours with 1,001 checkboxes, or is it going to be pretty simple? Let's jump in.
Let's have a look.
All right, so the first page we have here, I'm just going to refresh in case in classic session it's gone ahead and unauthed me, kicked me out. Nope, we're all good stuff. The first one that we're greeted with here is the branding page that we mentioned. So in here, I can customize, looks like almost everything. I can customize everything about this page. So we've got the headline, the caption, the logo, the coloring. As you guys saw in the form when we looked at the new user, everything was kind of blue in my portal. In this one we're looking at, it would be this dark red. But of course, that would be your company color. In this case, you could pick pretty much anything that you need in here as well. And again, just as a quick note, if you want to put like a contact number or some email addresses or anything like this in here, it is behind the single sign-on authentication. So only those approved users are going to be able to see that. So this is a pretty quick, pretty simple page, pretty nice. I enjoyed playing with this. It's the same sort of thing. You get a phone, you change the wallpaper 5 times. I really enjoy just kind of mucking about with this, changing it and seeing how it looks. I'm sure you guys do as well. Now, let's talk a little bit about the workflow here. So there's quite a lot on this page, and this is a very powerful one. Aaron, do you want to take us through what it is that we're looking at here?
Yeah, let's go through it. So starting from the top, we have, as Tom showed in the ticket, we actually set the status, type, subtype, item, priority, and some other values on the ticket. And so, of course, Pia is creating the ticket. The least we can do is also triage the ticket, right? We know what the request is. These settings up the top here are kind of the default settings for all SmartForms. However, if you, we'll jump to this a bit later on, but on the Forms tab, we can actually see that we can change these settings on a per form basis as well. So we can say, well, user onboardings, they're a different priority, or password resets are a different priority, and also different types and subtypes and so on. Coming down to automated workflow statuses, this is where, as Pia progresses through different stages of the workflow for completing that SmartForm request, we can actually have the ticket getting set to different statuses at different points in that cycle, in that flow. So right from when the request is initiated as the first status, we can set it to a status you choose. When the request has been submitted by the user, we can set it to a different status. And then we've got a little bit of a split flow here. So if the SmartForm is paused and has to wait for an engineer, so let's say a verification step fails and we need an engineer to come in and have a look at it, we can actually set it to a status for your engineers to look at, right? The Pia chatbot will just sit there and it'll just say, hey, what do you want me to do? And it will give your engineer some options. They make a change, click next, and Pia will proceed with the request. In the case where that then gets completed, it'll change to a completed by engineer status. But if the SmartForm completes without any engineer input at all, and completely zero touch, just like you saw before. We didn't have to do anything. It was magical. Then we change it to a completed with zero touch status. So that's the workflow statuses that will reflect into your PSA as SmartForms progresses through your request. In addition, just below that, we actually also have this new. So this is a new update. So we are showing the updates here as well in these screens. We also have now the ability to set a status when a request has been abandoned. So if someone opens up a new ticket, opens up a smart form, but they don't submit it, they just close it. They were just looking at it. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Close. You'll end up with a ticket in your PSA that might not get submitted. So due to feedback, we got some feedback from MSPs for this one, and we wanted to make sure that we're actually closing out those tickets. So this is a new feature to handle that process.
I do see some claps and some hearts coming through on the chat for that one as well. I think a few people using SmartForms were looking forward to this one. I've had this a couple of times.
Yes,
Um,
we've definitely had that feedback.
Yeah, and on that note, actually, a lot of things we've talked about, a lot of things that Pia has brought in, by the way, and including this one, I believe, actually comes from the feedback from you guys, comes from our ideas board and the conversations that we have with you. That information, that feedback is incredibly valuable, both to us and to yourselves as well, because it allows us to take those ideas and make them part of the product, make your guys' lives easier at the end of the day. That's what we're all about. So a few
100%.
things you'll see today actually came from this, and this is one of them. So
yes, we definitely
always
want
keep those
people
locked.
getting into that ideas portal, upvoting ideas, submitting ideas. 100%. We want people's feedback. We definitely use that to drive the improvements we're working on.
Fantastic. Now, continuing down, this one sounds very impressive. AI auto reply. Aaron, take us in. What's
Yes.
going on here?
Yeah, so we actually launched AI Auto Reply with the AI Triage launch in November at the end of last year. But what AI Auto Reply does, it's a function, a feature that allows you to drive organic adoption with SmartForms. So what we're really trying to do here is, like, let's say you've got this situation where you've rolled out a forms portal, i.e. SmartForms, to your clients, and you're still getting tickets being submitted via email, right? And we know that's going to happen, right? People
Oh, yeah.
forget the URL, they'll forget to use the forms portal, or they might just not even know that it exists. It might have been given to someone else, but they haven't seen it, right? So what this does is it allows us now, using Pia's AI, when we receive, because we're looking at every ticket that comes into your PSA, we're classifying every ticket, right? So we can actually see that a ticket, maybe that user onboarding request that someone submitted, we're classifying that as user onboarding. So what we're doing is we're checking, with this feature turned on, we're checking, okay, we've got a user onboarding request. Someone sent in an email saying Mandy starts next Monday. Can you create a new user? And we know that they've got SmartForms enabled. We know that that user has access to the user onboarding form. We know it's user onboarding request. So using AI auto reply, we're going to send them an email link in response. And this happens within seconds after they send in this email request, right? Like after they submit the ticket to you, they'll get a link to open the SmartForm so they can convert their request into a SmartForm ticket. Now, you as an MSP, if you're looking at that ticket in your system, it'll look like magic, right? Because effectively, if someone converts their request into a SmartForm request, SmartForms actually takes over the ticket and Pia starts doing the ticket, right? So once they've submitted that form, we actually change the title of the ticket, we change all the values on the ticket, and we start doing the ticket. So this is a powerful feature to drive the organic adoption of SmartForms. It's basically redirecting people back away from your service desk to the SmartForms, and they can obviously optionally choose to do that process.
Now, I do see a link expiry down here as well. I imagine, so if we do have one of these requests come through, and the client does receive the link and they go to click that, but maybe my service desk engineers, they are absolute heroes. They are on this request. They're firing off that peer automation before the client even saw the email, before they even clicked the link. Are we going to run into a conflict, or what happens here?
Yeah, and this is why we give people a specific window of time where they can actually do this. From what we've seen, most people, if they get that link back to them, and they're going to fill out the form, they're getting the link back to them a few seconds after they've sent their email in, and they're going to click the link within a couple of minutes, right? Within a few minutes. If they don't click that link within a few minutes, they're probably not going to fill out the form, unfortunately, right? So we give them a
Fair.
short window of time to do this process. And that means that your team doesn't have that necessarily that conflict of, well, we're already working on the request and they're trying to submit a form for it. So definitely, we've had some feedback from partners. We may add some extra functionality to configure options around that to make it better, if we need to. But yeah, definitely the time window is working for a lot of people at the moment. So.
Fantastic. And another point on that feedback, guys, well, if you are in here, you are using SmartForms, or this is going to tempt you to get in and start taking a look. If you do find something you're like, oh, hey, you know what? This little functionality would be awesome. Like, I wish it did this a little bit differently, or I wish it did that. Let us know, because there's a good chance it will do that in the future because of that feedback from you guys. So definitely let us know for things like that kind of pop up. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Now, this, I believe, some of you will be unfamiliar with. This is actually a brand new tab, Aaron. I am not even really super familiar
Yes.
with this from my end. It's not even in my
Yes.
demo environment, guys. So,
No, if you're
what is this permission tab? What's going on
yes,
here?
if you're a partner on this call, you might be looking at some of these things going, well, that's not in my Pia tenant. Yes, these are the latest updates that will actually be coming out in the next few weeks with Platform 18. So um, with this particular tab here, what we've done is we've introduced a new feature for roles in the portal here. So you can actually create global roles, which is what this tab allows you to do. And in the clients tab, we'll show later, you can also create roles per client as well. So you can be more granular. But the roles allow you to group forms together, and then you can actually put users in those roles. So you can say, I've got a HR role. The HR people should be able to do the user onboarding, user offboarding. We'll tick those forms on for that role, and then we'll put all the HR people in for my clients into that role. This is a hotly requested feature to effectively make configuring SmartForms easier. Whereas at the moment, without this feature, you've got to kind of, add forms individually to individual SmartForms users. But this feature here is actually a stepping stone to a feature that we're going to be releasing in a future release around synchronization of your PSA contacts into the roles. So what that would actually do is, we're an automation company, right? So we're going to automate stuff, but it will completely automate the configuration of your user setup process for SmartForms so that you won't need to maintain and manage it outside of managing your contacts and contact types in your PSA. But for anyone who's familiar with the user onboarding automation, would know that the user onboarding creates a contact in your PSA anyway. So kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you're getting new staff for your clients, it'll create a contact in your PSA, and Pia would then sync that back in to SmartForms and give them a user access to SmartForms if you've got that sync configured.
Fantastic. A very hotly anticipated one. I know there's quite a few MSPs out there who are waiting hotly for that one to get in there to really ease that transition of getting users in here. And I actually touched on a feature that we didn't really mention too much before, is the fact that you can customize. We'll actually see it a little bit in the moment. You can customize the forms on which clients get which forms, of course, but you can also do that on a per user or per role basis as well. So if you turn on the user onboarding or offboarding forms for a client, not every client or not every user at that client has access to that form. Only the ones who typically be able to request that kind of service request will have access to that form as well. So
Exactly.
very
Yeah.
granular in the way you can kind of control this. Awesome. Now let's move on to one more. This is another new one, I think, on me, the integrations tab. And I think, yes, this is Cloud Radio, an integration with Cloud Radio on the forms.
It is. Well
Interesting.
spotted.
It is. Tell me more. This is an interesting one. So this is a really cool one. So Aaron, tell me a bit more. What's going on here?
Yeah. So anyone who's using Cloud Radial, we do have, and we're announcing Cloud Radial integration. We have developed this with Cloud Radial. They've been awesome to work with. We've been working with them since the start of the year on this. But you can actually now embed SmartForms into Cloud Radial. So the reason why this is super powerful is, of course, if you're not using Cloud Radial, you're not using form solutions, you can just roll out Pia SmartForms to your clients. But if you are using Cloud Radial, one of the common questions we get is, do I have to give my clients two links to two different forms portals, right? Submitting Cloud Radial Forms and Pia SmartForms. With the Cloud Radial integration, the answer is no, you do not need to do that. You can embed SmartForms directly into Cloud Radial. So this has been a hotly requested feature, and something that Cloud Radial team were also eager to work with us on, because what it does is it brings automation right to the front. So if you are using that forms portal for Cloud Radial, you're now activating automation with Pia in that experience as well. Very powerful. And we do have a video of that a bit later in the session that will show everybody as well about what that looks like.
Fantastic. A lot of stuff getting teased here. And again, another thing that came from the feedback from you guys. So always get those ideas in there. Always super, super valuable.
Yeah. Now we are running a bit low on time, so we might have to run through the clients and forms tabs a bit quickly so we get to the next bit.
We'll do this one relatively quickly. Yeah. So these clients and forms pages, they'll look fairly similar to the ones you guys are using. If you're using SmartForms, look fairly similar. But for those of you who aren't, this is essentially where you configure SmartForms on a per client basis. So you can decide which of my clients gets access to SmartForms, which of them use the AI auto reply. And then I can also say which of them have access to which forms, and is AI auto reply turned on for those forms as well. So you can pretty much change everything. You can be really, really granular about who gets access to what and essentially what Pia does. And of course, as Aron mentioned as well, you can also create these roles on a per client basis as well as the global ones. So you do have the ability to do both in here. Now we'll jump over onto forms quickly because there are a few really important things to take a look at in here. A lot of powerful tools. Aron, take us through. We've got obviously the forms here. We've got all of our forms, both the ones that Pia has out of the box. We have quite a few, as well as the ones that we've created as an MSP or as a partner here. We have the clients that we're enabling from. So same sort of thing as enabling the forms on a per client basis. You can enable clients on a per form basis to make it nice and easy and efficient. But talk to me a little bit about these stamping rules here. Most of them are set to default here, but if I take one of them and open this up, this looks pretty similar to the page I saw earlier. So is this that per form ruling you were talking about?
Exactly. It's per form configuration. You can override those default values. So as Tom mentioned, extremely granular, the ability to modify these settings on a per form basis. And if you don't need to do this and you don't need to go to this level, of course, it will use the defaults that we set up in the first tab. So yeah, very, very granular. We want MSPs to be able to configure this to kind of exactly how your workflow and how you operate. And we know MSPs all unique in that way, and your clients are unique. You have unique requirements, so we want to try and facilitate that as much as possible.
Excellent, fantastic. And we'll come to the point now as well where we want to decide, do we want to turn on zero touch and how do we get there? That's why we wanted to speed up time, because this is a very in-depth, very technical, very long process. No, I'm just kidding. It's literally one button. So if we want zero touch turned on for these form here, it's literally just this button here. This is what transforms the form from just having the data that comes into the form and having the engineer see that and be able to kick off the automation to the magic that we saw earlier. Pia will take that ball, it will run, it will complete that automation for you as well. That's all I need to do. And of course, it is available on a per client basis. So you can have some clients that use zero touch and some that do not, based on their requirements and what's required as well. Got a lot of reactions in the chat there as well. So that's awesome. Good stuff. Validated my existence here on this call. So I appreciate that, guys. But yeah, I mean, anything to add? It is literally as easy as that to get zero touch enabled.
It really is
right?
as easy as that. And yeah, we have that for a bunch of the pre-built automations. So yeah, definitely easy to sort of configure that on a per client basis, like you said.
Fantastic. Awesome. One more thing I want to show you guys on this page before we do move on is this extension section as well. Now, we mentioned that it is super easy to attach your own code or form segments onto the Pia SmartForms, and this is essentially how you do it. You have multiple areas where you can insert your code within the process to allow Pia to augment and enhance what it does out of the box without having to edit the original. You can just create your small extra task, your extra form, and essentially just bolt on in this page here. Of course, we do have a lot of training available and resources in terms of building and developing these, and we're always happy to be part of that journey with you as well. But I just want to show you guys how many areas there is essentially for you to go and add some stuff in there. So it's very, very configurable, very customizable. Awesome. I think that's everything we need to touch on there. Should we head back to our fantastic slides? And kind of move on
Yes.
and see if we can get the Q&A because I can see a few things coming through. So I want to make sure we have some time for that. So just as a quick recap on why SmartForms, why did we do what we did? What is it that we achieved in that very quick, very magical demo just then? And of course, the first point, automate first, right? We had that automation come in. That's what's always driven us. That's what builds that efficiency into the service desk. And that's what we saw. We also saw the live and dynamic form. So we had that information that has been pulled from my environment before. So that demonstration, that example that Aaron gave us about, they give you Sarah's name for the manager. Maybe there's a couple. They can't do that. They have to pick one from the list, which means that they're comfortable. They know they've picked what they need to do. And you guys are as well. It means we can fully automate their request without the worry that something is in there is incorrect. And of course, just one extra thing I want to point out here as well is we do have over 9 pre-built automations to come, fully configured, fully featured, as we saw out of the box with that. You can, of course, create your own as well. And I have a bit of a line I like to use with partners when I talk about this is saying, hey, not every smart form that you build has to be a smart form. It can literally be, if you've got a couple of forms, a couple of kind of standard requests that you get from your clients and you want to put them into smart forms, we have a bit of a video coming soon actually on how to build it. I think there's actually one already out there in the KB. But the form editor is basically drag and drop. So if you just want to create a form, just get into smart forms, it literally takes minutes and then you have it there and you have all of that customization available that we saw in there previously as well. So incredibly, incredibly powerful. Now, I did run through there relatively quickly because I want to make sure we have some time for our Q&A and our guest speaker as well. But Aaron, anything did I miss? Do you want to add anything on this page here at all?
No, I think you covered it great, Tom. I think, yeah, we definitely saw the most powerful bit of that demo. For the favorite thing from my perspective is the fact that we saw the automation run on its own. We didn't have to do anything to that ticket. Zero touch was enabled, and the request was just completed without us having to do anything. So very, very powerful.
Absolutely. It sounds like a wonderful dream when you put it like that. The service desk didn't even know the ticket was there. It was up, completed, and closed before they even saw it. Amazing.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. All right, let's talk a little bit about the future. Now, we've seen a few of these things in here already, but Aaron, what else can you tell us? Expand on some of the points that we've seen. What's coming down the line? What's coming down the line for SmartForms?
Yeah, so of course we've seen Cloud Radial. We do have Cloud Radial, I think, on the next slide here. So this is what the Cloud Radial integration looks like. If you're familiar with Cloud Radial, you can see that the experience is very, very similar to submitting a form in Cloud Radial is like today. And so there's no double authentication. It's a fully integrated experience. The user won't even know that they're submitting a smart form. That's how integrated it is. But of course, the fact that you are submitting a smart form through this process means that Pia will just do the ticket for you if you have that zero touch configured. So extremely powerful, and that's how you're going to get that powerful automation if you are using Cloud Radial. In terms of updates, we did also mention custom roles. We mentioned syncing users in from the PSA. And in the future, we also have some of the things that we're going to be working on around approvals, more branding options, more smart forms, of course, that we want to add, and also looking at multi-stage smart forms, but highly driven by people's feedback as well. So definitely looking for that feedback in that ideas portal. So yeah, that kind of covers updates in a nutshell, Tom.
Fantastic. Awesome, Aaron. A lot of stuff sounding really good. A lot of stuff to get excited for. Of course, you guys probably know where if you're a peer partner, or even if you're not, we do have a kind of blog page on our knowledge base where you get information about everything that's coming down, everything that's changed, everything that's improved, and everything that's being added as well. So no doubt you'll see some information there about some of these things that we're talking about today. All right. In that case, let's move on. Let's see if we can get Matthew out here. Matthew is one of our partners coming from Divergent IT, and they've been using SmartForms. They've been using Pia for a little while now. We want to bring him out. We want to have a bit of a chat to him about his experience. And of course, if you guys have any questions specifically for him, we'll be able to cover that out here as well.
Yeah, let's get
now,
Matthew on.
I'm relatively new to Zoom, but I think I'm going to add him. If I kick him, Matthew, I apologize. But I will try not to do that. So I think if we go ahead and change Matthew to
panelist. Yes.
That's it. And then I think you'll get a pop-up on his side. And then he should come in. There we go. I see Matthew. There he is. Matthew,
awesome.
welcome.
How are you guys doing?
Doing very well. Doing very well. How are you?
Doing well.
How are you doing? You well?
I learned a whole bunch here. Cloud Radial, a bunch of this other new items that, yeah, we're not even privy to yet. So it is great joining these.
Awesome.
So I'm in
Awesome.
the same bucket as you. My demo environment doesn't have them either. Aaron's like one of the only ones who gets to play with these things, right at the beginning. So I'm just as excited as you guys are to get some of this, to get my hands on it, honestly. Now, do we have a few questions for Matthew? Is there something we want to kind of dive into here?
Yeah. Effectively, Matthew, we know obviously you've dived into automation and automating with Pia. You've got a bit of use around SmartForms and that. And really what we wanted to do is give you a couple of minutes if you can share your experience with everybody on SmartForms and Pia thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like a lot of IT companies, MSPs, TSPs, whatever you call yourself, I mean, we try to hop on the automation journey as soon as possible. And we were actually looking at a competitor a couple of years ago, and they did not have the necessary security, SOC 2 Type 2 compliance that our cyber liability insurance requires us to make sure our vendors have. So when we came across Pia, it was kind of a no-brainer for us, to be honest with you. And, we started our journey, I think it was back in October of last year. And we kind of challenged, Pia to say, hey, look, we want to start slow. And I think, that kind of took you guys by surprise. And once we started and we really saw how the onboarding and offboarding were done, like we were just amazed. I mean, I think I calculated, we're probably saving about anywhere between a half or a full half, three-quarters of a full-time employee a month just with onboarding and offboarding. We're not even looking at all the other stuff that can be done through SmartForms, even though we have it turned on. So that has
That's
been,
awesome.
to kind of segue into SmartForms, right? Allowing the customers to do it themselves. We were kind of concerned because they're just used to sending in emails, hey, terminate this one, hey, add this one. We have seen an increase in the customer satisfaction that they can do it, they can schedule it, right? They can add things that they want that they would typically forget. It's right there for them to just check a box, right? Being able to do new dynamic kind of like groups that we've added. Oh, we added a new group last week. It's not on the form. We didn't go update it. Well, SmartForms automatically pulling that information in. Don't have to remember to do any of that. And the zero touch has really helped us because we have clients all over the globe, UK, United States, and Canada. So we are a 9 to 5:30 Eastern time shop. So our customers outside of that window would have to like, hey, cut them out at 3 or 3:30 or 2 or 2:30. Now they can literally schedule it with the zero touch and it just go ahead and does it. And I will say we've seen an uptick in the additional services that are being done as well because the Pia agent is doing a lot more than what we were doing when we were terminating somebody, and it documents a lot better as well. So it's awesome. And then like the last thing that really helps with Pia for us, strictly for onboarding, offboarding, right? Someone gets terminated today, lo and behold, it does happen 2 weeks later. Hey, they're coming back, right? With the Pia agent, you can just say, go re-onboard them exactly how you offboarded them. And right, it truly does make that time and everything else just phenomenal. My only recommendation is for us, like I said, we wanted to start off slow, which I think we did, and now we are actively egging Pia to just keep adding more, continue to add more, please.
Yes, so, embrace the automation.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Matthew, you willing to stay around for some questions and answers? Maybe if anyone's got questions as well, that Matthew can maybe answer with his experience with Pia as well. Feel free to pop those in the Q&A, and we can have a look at some of those as well.
Absolutely fantastic. Alrighty, so let's move on to this community. There's quite a few in the chat already. We'll start to make our way through. We've got about 6 minutes left on the hour, but we will continue on past that a little bit as well. If you guys can hang around for that with any additional questions, please feel free. But do know, of course, this is being recorded. So if you do need to jump, don't worry, you won't miss anything. You will be able to. You will need to catch up. So first and foremost, and this is one I think we got in the last, the AI triage one as well, and it's probably on a lot of your guys' mind, but we've talked about a lot of really cool stuff today in the Pia portal. Aaron, I gotta ask, how much is it going to cost me as an MSP to get this SmartForms in place? What's the bolt-on cost for me to get this in place and start reaping the benefits?
Yeah, so the good news is that you don't need to pay anything extra for SmartForms, for accessing the SmartForms features with your Pia subscription, right? So
Fantastic.
with your Pia subscription, you get access to SmartForms as part of that. So turn it on, get the benefit out of it. Of course, if you're using we've got a couple of plans, right? If you're on the consumption plan, you will pay per execution of an automation. That's the same thing with SmartForms. They do count towards automation executions. But in terms of access to features, you have access to the full set of features, just like everybody else who has access to Pia.
Fantastic. Awesome. And then we'll start to dive into some more very specific ones. So Raphael asked actually towards the beginning, so we came in this one with very hot. Does Pia work with Spanish language? Can we change the language on the forms? I know this is something that our partners, a couple of in the Benelux region, have a kind of approached us and kind of worked with us on that as well. So what are the options kind of available to partners who do need something in another language?
Yeah, I mean, Tom, perhaps if you've probably got more context than I do on that one, if you've helped people directly with that.
I have, yeah. So let me kind of dive in. So, in terms of the SmartForm itself, there isn't currently an option where you can toggle the kind of language that it's in. But what we did for some of the partners I work with in the kind of the Benelux region, they obviously had a couple of different languages that their clients typically speak. So what we did, and this is always available to Pia partners, both from a SmartForm perspective as well as the other automations, is we actually provided copies of the SmartForms as they are. And they went in and just updated it. So they didn't need to change any code, they didn't need to change anything like that. They purely just updated the names on the fields, and then had a purely customized one in the language and stuff that they wanted, which is probably better than us trying to translate it into a language that we don't speak, because no doubt there's going to be some errors there. But if there's something you want to do, if you have some things you want to help translate, we'll jump on for maybe half an hour call with you, and we'll kind of knock it out all in one call. So it is something we can do, though not specifically kind of UI based.
Awesome. I do have a question for Matthew. So we're going to take full advantage of Matthew while he's on the call. Matthew, when you rolled out SmartForms to your clients, what kind of approach did you use? Did you go after your largest clients first? Did you do a blanket approach? Did you do a bit of a trial? How did you approach that with your clients?
Yeah, we went right to the clients that were outside of our time zone, and then we went to the clients that we're doing the most onboarding and offboarding. Like we had a client, or we do have a client that's probably onboarding, offboarding 30 users a month. And we had literally just taken them on in January of this year. And the previous MSP was having them fill out like a paper form. And when we showed them, hey, you can just do all of this, because the hiring or the HR person is based out of California. When we gave her access, she was like, I just need to do this. I don't need to fill out a paper form anymore. I can onboard and offboard, and she gets to choose what M365 license. Like, we don't even hear from her. And
that's awesome.
It's great because she can onboard and offboard users without any interaction from us at all. And like when I talk to the IT director, he's just like, I can't believe that others are not doing this. Like, is this special to you? And I'm like, no, this is open to all companies that are in our position. So
definitely wins you some points as well then, right? With your clients.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Fantastic. All right. Just before we continue on with the Q&A, just because we're rounding up to the hour, in case anyone does need to jump, I just want to throw this slide up here as well. So if there is any questions that do come up after the section, after we're finished here, you can reach out to us in a number of different ways. So we obviously have the Pia.ai as our main website where you can see all our contact details. We have YouTube, we have LinkedIn, we have Facebook as well. And if you would like to book a demo, because as Aaron kind of mentioned, SmartForms is really only one part of it. There are several other arms, a lot of other things that Pia can do. With the internal tools which can help the efficiency on your service desk. I do implore you to book a demo, scan that QR code or click the link on the website, jump in, let us take you through, let us show you everything Pia can do, and as well as answer any additional questions as well. So I'll leave this up as we go through the last of the questions if anyone needs it. But of course, the details will be emailed to you as well. Now, this is a question that's been asked a couple of times here. So I'm kind of group them all into one. And it's essentially when you zero touch a ticket, once that does run the full process entirely, what happens after that fact? Can Pia update the ticket or send an email to the client with an update with those credentials? Is that something that could be added via an extension, perhaps? How does that kind of work and how does that kind of look?
Yeah, absolutely. So P is going to do a standard set of actions for those user onboarding and those standard request processes. In most cases, that will be 80 to 100% of what you need for most clients. But in the case where you do need to add those extra actions, you are able to do that with extension automations in Pia. So you're able to create an extension automation. You'll need to have someone with a little bit of PowerShell scripting knowledge to be able to kind of add a few actions in there. You might get away with the basics if you can kind of figure out your way around it. But if you're going to do something a little bit more advanced, you'll want to have someone with that PowerShell knowledge to jump into the tool and create those extensions, Tom.
Fantastic. Awesome. And I can speak from experience from that one as well, guys. I have built that extension as part of some of my sessions with the client. So if you're interested, book some time with us. We'll get in there. We'll help you do it. It's not too bad. We're probably talking 20 minutes or so in terms of actually getting the kind of in there. I have a bit of a template that I can help you guys use. So it's not too bad at all. Depends on how you want to do it as well. As Aaron mentioned, it might be that we do everything apart from ordering the hardware, at least until that point has been automated. So you might not want the email to be sent straight away. It's worth also noting as well, some of the partners I work with, they use zero touch, but don't use it to completely close the request. It actually goes to a status that highlights to an engineer that the user has been created, the automation has been completed. All they need to do is verify the details and send the email and do anything else that needs doing before essentially closing the ticket off. So there's quite a lot of different ways you can do it. Fully closing is just one of those. It's just kind of one of those options.
Awesome. So,
and then we had a few more. Oh, sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
I was going to say we're on the hour. I can't see any more questions in there for you, Matthew. So perhaps we'll let you go.
Okay.
And
appreciate it, guys. You have a good one. All right.
Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us,
Matthew, with everyone.
Yeah. Bye.
Take care.
See ya.
Awesome. So let me go through. We've got a couple of others in there. We had a couple of tickets about zero touch and configuration. I think we may have answered some of them as we go through, but essentially saying, does SmartForm need to be set up globally, like is it just one setup, or is it per client? And the same sort of thing for zero touch. If they wanted to turn it on globally, is there an option to do that? And I think the answer is kind of both. A lot of the options are kind of quite global, and you can enable SmartForms very quickly and very easily, but you can dive down into the granular settings if you want to be able to do that. Or you can kind of just go down to that camera, flick everything on in about 60 seconds, and then everyone's got access to everything. So it kind of depends on what you want to do. In terms of zero touch, correct me if I'm wrong here, Aaron, but there's not a way to turn it on globally for everything at the moment, but that is something we can do upon request.
Absolutely. If you want to configure zero touch on bulk across all your clients, or you want to enable an extension across all your clients, we do have plans to do something about that in the future and adding a feature in for that. But in the meantime, just send an email to our partner support email address, and our team has some scripts that will actually help you do that.
Fantastic. Awesome. And this is quite a good one. This is one we didn't actually kind of touch on in our example here, but I know we do have a few that do. A question here saying that someone is new to Pia, they're not fully onboarded, but they are looking into the forms already, and they want to make the form quite dynamic. They want to essentially create something that would populate the answers below based on the answers given, kind of grow organically based on the information that the client's done. And I think, if you don't mind it, I can actually show the example of the IT help request where the form kind of grows in that manner. If you would be okay with me.
Absolutely.
All right. So I'm just going to jump back across into my portal here. I'm just going to refresh, make sure I'm still logged in, still authenticated. There we go. Now, one of the ones that we have is this IT help request. This is actually one of my favorite ones because it's a really nice alternative to saying to the clients, hey, we have this portal for all of these automated requests, right? Your user onboardings, your password resets, accounts unlocks, mail forwarding rules, your kind of standard requests. But if you need something else, email us directly. This essentially allows them to still submit a generic ticket to the service desk without having to resort back to the standard old process of sending you guys an email. And the way this form grows is quite dynamic. So we've got a couple of options here at the top. We say, I want something fixed, or something added, or I want to purchase something. So you essentially have your incident, your service request, or potentially kind of a sales quotation here. Now, as I select these items, you can see the form then grows depending on what I've selected. If I switch across to something added or removed, I can now go down here and say employee changes. I can go employee add or email changes. If I go to purchases, I get the ability to add those details. So a lot of our forms do have this behavior built in, and it is really simple to configure on your own forms as well, basing the behavior of certain fields off the output of others.
Yeah,
And of
and
course,
just with the IT help request form specifically, that one is a great one for people to customize because there's really not a lot of automation on this particular form. It's really just to capture information, but it's a way to show people what's possible with the forms, right? So we definitely encourage people taking a copy of this one and modifying it for themselves. If you want to copy any of the forms, I can contact our support team and say, hey, I want a copy of this form so I can modify it for myself, or you can just go in and create the forms for yourselves in the Pia portal as well. So we usually, when you want to add fields to something more powerful like the user onboarding, we definitely recommend you use extensions for that. Whereas with something simple like this one, you could just completely copy it and make any change you want to it.
Absolutely. If you guys are interested, of course, yeah, let us know. We'll get you into a session. Typically, I run a session that's about half an hour to an hour and just creating basic forms. And it's really quite, we usually do a couple of examples in that one. So if you're interested, absolutely reach out and kind of let us know. Now this one may be a bit more of a, what's the plans for the future, Aaron? But I think some have been quite interested in that cloud radial integration there and wondering, if we have other portals, they have a client that has a self-service portal that integrates as part of their PSA natively. How or when will SmartForms potentially be able to integrate with that? Is there any plans to grow beyond the cloud radio integration that we have already?
There's no solid plans for it. We do have some options we're looking at, but we definitely it's going to be based on feedback, and of course we want to see how the cloud radial one goes first before we make any sort of commitments to the next one. But we definitely keen to hear feedback. If people have their favorite portal, please upvote it on the ideas portal and let us know. The more upvotes we can get for those things, the more we can make the right call on which one's the next one, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Awesome. And there's been a few more dotted around as part of other questions as well about the general development process as well. But all we can really build on, I think we've covered most of it already, but all the things I wanted to kind of build on here is that, to Aaron's point, everything that you saw us do in that form can be done. It can be replicated. And we can provide the examples about how we did that as well. So if you want to build a form that's not just for data input, but actually pulls a list of users or machines. I think, Aaron, you said one of the clients has created one that essentially is for software install, self-service software install through SmartForms. It's all doable.
So yeah, exactly. A couple of examples that I've seen where people have created SmartForms to do, install Visio on my computer, right? And because the Pia agent being installed on those machines can effectively run a SmartForm request, creates the ticket, installs Visio on the machine, logs everything to the ticket, time on the ticket if needed, closes the ticket, Visio is installed, and your client is happy, right? So you can create that yourself as well. You can also do, for example, a lot of MSPs have shared desktop environments, right? Where they might have ghosted sessions, right? And for some reason, as an MSP, it's your job to log people out of those sessions if they get stuck. So you can create a smart form to actually log people out of a remote desktop session if they're getting stuck, right? And then give them access to do that rather than you having to get that ticket every time and go and manually do that process. So I've seen heaps of custom stuff that MSPs have created for their own smart forms, and yeah, the sky is the limit. You can create whatever you like, whatever you want to automate, whatever your key pain points are as an MSP for around that smart forms there. And I did see that comment. There's a couple of comments in there around building extensions, building automations. I just want to point to some of the resources as well. So we offer all partners, and this is really important as well, because a lot of people, you go to a software company, you buy some software. What kind of support do I get, right? Like, are you guys going to help me build this stuff? Are you going to give me the resources? We do provide training sessions for all partners coming on to build custom automations. We do provide that support. We also provide Discord server. So we've got a community where you can go in and ask questions to our Discord. We have our developers on there. We have our partners on there. We've got some awesome partners on there, MSPs who have done all that before. They're answering questions on there. So if you get stuck and you're like, oh, don't know how to do this next bit on this extension, you can ask the questions in there. We have our knowledge portal as well, which goes through tutorials. We have video guides on how to build these things. So there's all that knowledge on that knowledge portal as well.
Absolutely. Really great place, the Discord, by the way. There's a lot of threads in there. Everything from, hey, I've got a weird syntax error in PowerShell, to, hey, I brought this like 2,000 line automation and it's erroring somewhere in the middle of some, because someone take a look. So if you guys are ever interested, and even if it's just at the beginning of that kind of journey, you do a training session with us and you just want to understand the kind of things that people are building and the kind of things people are asking, always recommend, as soon as you've got access, jump in there, have a bit of a look around and see what's going on. I think there's even quite a lot of like package examples you've written, Aaron, and just kind of published in there for people to kind of grab as and when required. I think.
Yeah, we have examples in there in the Discord as well of certain ways or automations, types of ways of talk to Exchange, talk to Graph, Microsoft APIs. We've got examples of all those things in there as well.
Fantastic. And actually, on that note as well, we have had a question just into the chat here saying, do I need to pay for these automation sessions, these kind of training sessions with Pia? And of course, the answer to that is, with any of our training sessions, no. They are absolutely included in the subscription that you have already. There's no specific limit. We can always do a couple with you if we need to go quite deep into it. But there's absolutely no charge for that. So absolutely do book some time with our team here. We're available pretty much 24/7 to us being kind of spread around the globe. So wherever you are, whenever you need it, we're going to be there. We're going to be able to jump in and get you where you need to be. Good question. Awesome. I think that is everything. I think I've answered everything. If I haven't, guys, by the way, if I have missed something, I do apologize. There's quite a few in there. But do always feel free to reach out to us on any of the communication channels we've spoken about, or any that you had if you are an existing Pia partner. And of course, if you want to know a little bit more, if you're not using Pia that much and you want to say, hey, SmartForms is pretty cool, what else can it do? Absolutely get a demo booked and we'll take you through everything and be able to answer your question one-on-one as well. I think that's everything. But Aaron, anything else you want to add towards the end here? Or should we let these nice people go?
Yeah, no, I think, Tom, I really I'm glad we took the time to go through all that. I'm glad people stayed on with us right to the end, because really important for us to get all those questions answered for people. But yeah, very happy that we were able to show people today some of what that looks like, and hopefully that was helpful to people. Definitely book a demo. But yeah, absolutely, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you ever so much for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a fantastic week. No doubt we'll see you again on the next one as well. But again, I just want to thank you so much. We'll end it here. You'll get a copy of the recording, and hopefully we'll speak to you again very soon. Thank you for all the reactions, by the way. I've seen quite a lot of those throughout the session today. I just want to thank everyone who's mashing that button. Absolutely fantastic. Even if it's just one guy, just absolutely go mad with that button.
Someone who wants a Pia t-shirt.
That's it.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Take care. We'll see you soon. Bye.